givers. Liz makes you wanna give God praise, God praise. Liz Black got your back. Shout out to all my people, so where you at? Liz Black got your back. Shout out to all my people, so where you at? Liz Black got your back. Shout out to all my people, so where you at? Liz Black got your back. Shout out to all my people, so where you at? Come on and get down, everybody. Come on and give him all of your praise. Liz Black is playing all of the...
This is for you, my love muffins. It's my heart. You know, I got nothing but love for you. I say it all the time. I mean it. And today is an exceptional kind of day because the ladies that I have on, like, I didn't even realize I have royalty in the house today, and they're here just for us, and they're going to share some information. So let me just get right to it, okay? Dr. Kelly Posner Gerstenhaber, she is the Secretary of Defense Medal for Exceptional Public Service recipient and the Professor of Psychiatric at Columbia University, and Dr. Keita Franklin, former Director of Suicide Prevention for the Department of Defense. We have them here with us. I'm bringing them right up. I'm not wasting any time. Ladies, how you doing?
Happy to be here with you.
Man, this is big. Like, you ladies are bringing wisdom and knowledge, and you took time out to hang out with us. So we don't take that for granted today. I just want to say thank you. It's evening. You could be doing other things, but it's obviously your love and commitment and devotion is to people and those that are hurting. So I want to say thank you for that. Those of you that are here, come on and check in. We want to know you're here. Hey, Valerie, what's going on? Good to see you. Yep, it's wonderful. Y'all check in and say hi. I don't want to spend a lot of time with check-ins. We want to get right to the information. On my show every day, I try to give out the suicide prevention lifeline number because you never know when you can share it and help somebody out. Let's talk about where we are now, you know, in COVID, out of COVID, coming out of COVID, but COVID's still there. Which one of you want to address where we are now with the suicide rate?
I'll start with that one, Liz.
Okay.
So let me start with the really good news. There is hope. There is help. Suicide is preventable. Depression is treatable. But it's been this ridiculously tragic paradox that takes more firemen than fire, more police than crime, more lives than car accidents. You know, it's the number one cause of death in adolescent girls across the globe. You know, I could go on and on. And did you know that 5-year-old suicide has?
No.
Yeah, it's actually the CDC has told us that it's actually gone up. But guess what? Only among African American preschoolers. So let me come back to that for a moment, okay? So it's been this global public health crisis, but the good news is we know how to do away with it, you know, and this isn't a problem of kids or veterans or elderly or youth. It is our shared problem of humanity. But as I said, we know we can do something about it. And the proof has been in the pudding. Do you know, every year for 20 years, the suicide rate kept going up and up and up every year until the last 2 years. Guess what? During COVID, it went down 6%. So we know.
How is that? People are more depressed, aren't they?
I'm going to tell you how I think it is, but let me tell you the caveat here, okay? The decrease was only among white Americans. Where we see we have a lot of work to do among Black Americans and LGBT and Latinx, it actually went up. So we're seeing this intersection between these two humanitarian crises, you know, and that's, you know, the good news, right? We know how to do this. We're seeing even during COVID, we're seeing decreases, but there are vulnerable people that we must do a much better job to help.
And you're talking about my community, and we're talking about, when you tell me, babe, you're a baby at 5 years old, what do you know about taking your life?
Yeah, well, it's true, but I would tell you that I think, you know, we know it's preventable, and what is that formula? What are the two things? Well, first of all, the biggest cause of suicide, Liz, is this genetic treatable medical illness called depression, but we don't think of depression the way we think of cancer. You would never hear the word choice when it comes to cancer. And that stigma and misunderstanding leads up to 75% of people who need these simple medicines like antidepressants to not get them. So that, I'm weak if I ask for help. This isn't a real illness, right? If you had asthma, you'd have an inhaler. If you had an infection, you'd have an antibiotic. And guess what we know? Like autopsy, we know that not treating depression is what kills people. Autopsy studies are invariably associated with no treatment or lack of compliance. Since we have modern antidepressants like Prozac and Paxil, the suicide rate has dropped dramatically across the world, across ages. So we know that barrier. And the second thing, because you said, how do we prevent it? The second thing is we have to find people suffering in silence. So we know that 50% of people who die by suicide have seen their primary care doctor the month before they die. We need to ask like we monitor for blood pressure, right?
Yes.
If we don't make this routine, we won't find those people. And I will say one of the things that Dr. Franklin really recognized for the field in her leadership role running DOD and VA suicide prevention is, why weren't we moving the needle? One of the reasons is we needed to find people where they work, live, thrive, and learn, because many people don't ever get to the doctor. So we kind of know that formula, and we know it's been working in a lot of places. We just need to do it even more.
And right now, you ladies are talking to the church, and a lot of times, we're just going to pray and keep it moving. But doctors are here for a reason. And, I can be a Christian and use an inhaler for asthma and still believe God to heal me. But I also can go to the doctor if I have depression and still believe God to heal me. But I can still go to the doctor. And that seems to be sometimes a message that I try to get out, because it's very real. We deal with this just like everybody else. So I'm really grateful that you ladies took time to come out. We talked about it being preventable. We talked about the pandemic. Now, Dr. Franklin, with the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, can we even talk about this? Let me just say something. What I saw on television, and a lot of the veterans and the active members that came back from there, they were very depressed. So unmute
Dr.
yourself.
Franklin, you're on mute. And Dr. Franklin, can you tell Liz in the audience where you actually are?
Yes, I'm actually dialing in from an Afghanistan refugee site.
Are you? God bless you, Dr. Franklin.
Out at a location live with about 12,000 Afghans who are in the process of resettling into the U.S. But you're absolutely right in terms of the withdrawal and the veterans. The withdrawal from Afghanistan triggered many of our veterans for very logical reasons. You have basically 2 decades of veterans that believe that they, devoted their life to keep protecting this nation's safety and security, and believe that they did it for a sense of purpose and meaning that was just very, important to who they were as sailors and airmen and Marines. And then the withdrawal and the way that it happened, which, I know we're not here to talk about that piece of it in terms of the political context, but it did cause some veterans to struggle and trigger some post-traumatic stress disorders symptoms. And so there was an uptick in calls actually to the veteran hotline, which is the number that you're talking about on your show. Like if you press 1, you get the veteran version of that hotline. And so there was an uptick in calls around the 2-week period for that reason. And so it just becomes so important to, make sure folks know that veterans who need help and support have a place to go, that we identify if they're struggling with risk, and that, we offer them support peer-to-peer. In many cases, Dr. Posner and I talk a lot about the fact that like vet to vet or, first responder to first often help each other most, but then definitely getting them into, mental health care is critically important as well.
What do we do to help? What can I do little old me, what can I do to help?
Well, one thing I would mention too, real quick, Dr. Rice, is you mentioned early on that your show is focused on, a faith-based audience and things like this. And believe it or not, and I'm sure you probably already know this, like a belief in a higher power and a belief in something sort of bigger than yourself, and that in many cases is a faith-based belief, is like what we in the field call the protective factor. Like that in and of itself is helpful. So know that you're likely already doing quite a bit in that regard.
Yes.
People that have that sense of belief know they have something to fall back on when the going gets tough. But equally so, I want Dr. Posner to talk more about also, screening for suicide risk, because it's a simple, easy tool that anyone can use.
That'll be good.
Yeah. So there's something called the Columbia Protocol, and it is a simple set of questions that is policy all over the globe, right? But it empowers every single person to be part of the solution. You talk about faith-based. So I said that what we realized why we weren't moving the needles, we needed to have a public health approach and go find people. So, the Marines and the Air Force were the first ones to do just that. Every clergy and financial aid and spouses, et cetera, they lowered suicide. And that became a model for the globe, for communities all over. And so these simple questions that help you identify somebody who needs more help is actually, it's amazing that something so simple could have such impact. State after state have said, we've lowered suicide since we've done this, because what's happening? It's connecting the right people to care. And the important thing to know is, I talked about how it has to be routine in healthcare. It also we have to, by asking and being there for people, we destigmatize it and we make it okay to ask. And you know what? When people are suffering, they actually want to be asked. They want help. I have to tell you a story. Our friend and colleague, Kevin Hines, survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow!
Which is fatal 99% of the time. And you know what, Liz? He tells a story that he woke up that morning, 19 years old, and said, if just one person asks me if I'm okay, I won't do it. Gets on the bus. What's wrong with that kid? Gets shooed off the bus, goes to the side of the bridge. Finally, this woman walks towards him and he becomes hopeful. And she says, can you take my picture, in some German accent? And he said, screw this. Nobody cares. And he jumped. And as he jumped, like every other survivor, all he wanted to do was survive. And he said that he realized all of the problems in his life were fixable, except the fact that he just jumped. And he said, people who are considering suicide want someone to save them. What we need is a culture where no one is afraid to ask. And that's so important,
my eyes are welling up with tears, knowing, one, that he felt so bad that he wanted to end his life. But two, that God knew he had a purpose and there was more for him. And I would love to hear his testimony and he could share it, because he came from the brink of death. You know what I'm saying?
He did. And he's a CNN hero and he has a book and a movie. And I have to tell you one thing, because you said God meant for him to tell his story. He gets down in the water, realizes he's alive, and he feels something slimy. And he says, oh my goodness, I just survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and now I'm going to get eaten by a shark. Just my luck. So he's on a show a year later and somebody writes in and says, listen, I was standing next to you. I'm so happy you were alive. But let me tell you, buddy, that was a sea lion that kept him afloat until he was rescued. Somebody meant for him to be able to tell this story, as you said.
Yes, those little sea lions. Oh, I'm just so happy to hear a story like that, because we've been hearing some stories not as positive, and we're seeing out there, I don't know if it's just me that's seeing this, but when I watch the news, it's like people have just lost their sense, their way. They're just those that are just so far gone, and we need to reel them back in and help them however we can. So those of you that are watching, we're going to give a couple of points. Dr. Posner, you'll give a couple of, who will be my secretary this evening and write these points down? Somebody has to do it. Michael, it might be you, because you're always with me. So it might be you tonight if nobody else does it. Yes, Michael, God was with him and still is, obviously. All right. So Dr. Posner, give us how can we, detect on someone else? And I do want to say one thing. My doctor when I come in, she kind of feels around and asks, you know, how am I doing? Have
Yeah.
you been depressed? How's your sleeping? All these little, she's just checking to make sure, because you know I go through a lot. She knows it, so she's keeping an eye on me, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know, most doctors you would go to now would ask you these questions, right? We're making it routine. That's great. But again, we have to empower everybody. And I wanted to say that that family members, you know, loved ones, it's
Yes.
so important, particularly during COVID. And Dr. Franklin always talks about the lessons of war, your battle buddies, you know, when you may get a doctor's visit, God only knows, right? Check in on your friend, check in on your neighbor. We know that spouses, I'm going to tell you another story. Forgive me with my
I love your stories. It's okay.
So our other friend who's the spokesperson for the tragedy assistance program, who take care of families of people who've served our country and lost their lives.
Yes.
And she tells a story about her Marine pilot husband who had untreated depression. And he finally had the will to go to his commanding officer, who said, listen, buddy, been there, you know, take time, take care of yourself. But whatever you do, don't go on medicine and don't go to treatment, because you can't do that and fly. The stigma of treatment, right? And mental health. And then she says he was supposed to come home on leave in 2 days. And something in her gut told her to get on that red eye. And when she got there, it was too late. And she said, if only I had had these questions, I would have known not to leave him alone in that hotel room that night. At least she would have had a better chance of saving his life. So we have these cards that you can go on the website, ask your spouse, care for your spouse, ask your kids, ask your friend, ask your peer. And that peer-to-peer, as Dr. Franklin was saying, is so vital. And I'm just going to make one more point, and then I'll shut up. But
shut up.
We know that connectedness
Yes.
is so important. And during COVID, of course, you know, social distancing doesn't have to mean social isolation, but the CDC told us a long time ago, well before COVID, that connectedness was one of the most important things you could do to prevent suicide. And lest you doubt the importance of that, you know, there was a study that showed that its opposite, loneliness, is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, more lethal than heart disease or
what?
Yeah.
And we know when you connect with your peers, and these questions are also another way to connect, and just how important that is, you know, to be there, to know to ask, to care about people, to destigmatize it and make it routine, and understand that you're helping people. And you know, what we know from other mass traumas, Liz, is that when you're helping someone else, this altruism and sense of doing good actually helps everybody heal.
I just want to cry. I feel good that I'm getting the information, but I feel bad for those that are still suffering. If we come across someone, we ask them, you know, how are you feeling? Is that the first question we ask?
Well, the actual direct questions, and we know when you can be direct, that's so important, okay? It's part of normalizing it or destigmatizing it. Have you wished you were dead, or have you actually had thoughts of killing yourself?
Oh.
And that's yes. Then you ask, have you thought about how you might do this? Have you had these thoughts and had some intention of acting on them? Or have you started to work out or worked out the details of how to kill yourself? And those three questions don't get asked unless the second question is yes. And then, have you started to do anything, prepared to do anything to end your life, like collecting pills, writing a note? You know, why is this the global language? Because it's the first time we have science-based thresholds for who to worry about. Okay, which is only 1% of people get a high risk. And it's the first time we're asking about all those suicidal behaviors. You know, before this one simple questions, you would miss the person that bought the gun or collected the pills or wrote the note, right?
Yes.
Simple ways to get the people who need the help they need.
And then I think, like in the past, what we did in the field more generally was we waited until people came in, like you said, your doctor's asking you, which we want that to continue. But we waited until people came into their doctor and relied on their doctor singularly to get after this issue. Well, you know, in some cases, we know some people are just not that good about going to their doctor annually, particularly men. But more generally, there are also other people who don't have health insurance, who avoid medical care. You know, you and I probably have some in our own family who do this. And so
Yes.
relying on just the doctor at just an annual checkup, we were like missing like large parts of opportunities. So that's why some of our work has involved like just teaching people, and why we're so grateful to talk to you about this today is because we just get to teach everyday people the same questions that a doctor used to say. And now when everyday people ask them, we're really encouraging, you know, people to identify people just to come out of the shadows if they're hurting inside.
I want to tell you both publicly that I absolutely love you. The information that you give, and I want you to know that whenever you need me, you need to come on the radio, whatever it is, I'm making myself available to you. You will have my number, and I want to make sure that we do this more than just one time. We say goodbye, and then you come back again next year when it's Mental Health Awareness Month again, and then we wait another year. How many people did we miss in that year because we didn't do little follow-ups or little times like this?
Yeah, it'll be so good for you to hear from some of the survivors that Dr. Posner mentioned. Like, there's nothing like hearing from a mom or dad who's lost one of their own kids to suicide, and we'll connect to that community because we learned so much from the survivors. And I mean, one of the big things I've learned over the years is just that they don't want to die. I mean, Kevin Hines talks about that. They want the emotional pain to go away, but they truly don't want to die. So the more people can learn from the survivors, it's also a way to honor their loved ones. So we'll connect you to that community too.
Oh, I'll have them come on and give testimonies. We can do this if you ladies are up. I mean, I know I kept you on longer than we wanted to, but you know what? God knows what he's doing by connecting us. I'm getting ready to do
I'm going to tell you one more thing you can do. And I hope we're great partners from now on.
I do too.
The same way you put the suicide prevention hotline on every show, put the link to the questions that everybody can use to help save a life. The Columbia Protocol. There's an app out there. Everybody can download it. So that would be
Columbia Protocol.
I'll pull it up. Yep.
Okay. All right. I will make sure that I give that out.com. And that's where all the questions are. That's wonderful. Yes. Michael says we need to bring them back again, Liz. This is a good time. Thank you, Michael. I agree. I'm doing a really big, I don't know how big it will be. I usually had Sears as my sponsor, but I do a coat drive every year, and I do a concert only for those that are homeless. Those are in the sheltered, battered women, and it's only open to them, and it's free. They get the concert, and they get to take a coat for free. And that might be a great place for you to share some information, because they are a captive audience. You're not getting a coat until you hear the music and what we have to say. So I'm just saying it might be something. I'm trying to get the shower bus out there. I want to make sure they know that they're loved, not only by me, but that God loves them and anyone else that comes out and supports it. So, there's stuff we can talk about. I'd love you to do pieces on the radio for me. So someone sent a private chat. Let's see.
I sent
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It won't let me put it in the public link. So.
Okay. I will make sure that I put this when it goes on my page. I will put that link up there also. Those of you that are out there, it is a great discussion. Valerie, you are very welcome. And I hope instead of, we may laugh a little bit, but it's very serious. And I need you all to be eyes out there.
Yes.
We cannot pass over people and think it's okay. And then we find out later, oh, this happened. And we say, oh man, I should have said something to them. Or, oh, I should have given them a ride and maybe talk to them. Let's do that before we see any tragedy happen. Go over to Columbia Protocol. We want to know the questions that we're going to ask, what we're looking for. I'll take a few questions. I've kept the ladies way longer than I felt that they wanted to stay on. But Dr. Franklin, what time is it by you?
It is. I'm in the West Coast, so it's 7:01.
7:01 in the PM?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't sure. I thought you were in Afghanistan or something.
No, I'm at a refugee camp. I'm in a refugee camp here in the U.S. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. If there's any questions, bring them quickly. And knowing that our little babies at 5 years old that their minds haven't even formed, their brains are not developed. To know that they don't want to be here is breaking my heart.
Yes, yes. We always talk in the field about, people sometimes think that, there's one reason someone dies by suicide, like, there was a divorce or something, but there's usually like a lot of reasons. And I know Dr. Posner talked about depression and mental illness, but, there additionally, we see other things like relationship problems and financial struggles and legal struggles. And we see kids that feel like they feel marginalized and they don't fit in with their peer group and they feel left out and not connected. So there's a lot of things we can look for.
That's wonderful. And I want you all to know that Dr. Franklin and Dr. Posner, they are family. So they will be back again. We're going to, God brought us together. When I spoke to you both on the phone and we did that interview, I knew that there was something that had to happen. And if I have to rent a hotel banquet facility for us to do a conference on mental health awareness, then that's what I will do. But I am committed to this part. I don't know why, but I am.
Oh, thank you for
meeting
being
you
such a
two
good
is
leader.
great. When we get off, just hang on so I can give you my information so that you know how to reach me. I don't see any questions right now. I know you guys probably didn't expect this. Oh, here we go. What about kids who are bullied in school?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great question. And bullying is terrible, and it is prevalent, and it is connected to increased risk for being suicidal. But the important thing to know, and this came loud and clear from parents who lost their kids, bullying doesn't cause suicide, right? It's another risk factor and a trigger and a precipitant. But like I said, the depression and the mental health issues are the biggest cause. And then when you add all these other things like breakups and loss of job and bullying, those things all accumulate. Access to means, etc. So bullying is very serious, and it just means that what we're talking about, that we must ask and we must make it routine, because the more we ask questions about suicide risk.
Oh no, what happened? The more we ask questions about suicide risk,
the better we're able to find out who's suffering, and the more we're able to get them into care. So it is critically important.
Yes,
exactly.
You can finish each other's words and sentences. I love it.
Together about a decade doing this work.
I know. Now, I just want to say that when you're talking about kids, right?
Yes.
I had the honor of giving the lead presentation to the Senate after Parkland, and what we spoke about is, how do we get these questions in every parent, every teacher, every coach's hands before if they ever get to the doctor? This is how we will save kids' lives.
Well, I'm committed, even if we just need to do a young people's Zoom, just for young people.
Yes.
No adults, no grown-ups, just our young people one day, and come on and do this. Let me just ask you this. I have to before I let you go. Let's talk about our seniors. There are seniors that just are not going to go to the doctor, and there are some mental issues that are there. I don't even know how we would address that.
Yeah, the biggest thing that concerns me, a couple things that concern me about seniors, and that we've a little bit already talked about, and that is isolation. And so if people know people that are, believe it or not, over the age of 55, we have
that's young.
A phenomenon in the field where we even, particularly for men, where we say like men over 55 will be in meetings discussing suicide risk, and that it's a common phrase. It's white men over 55, they'll say. But so, and that is tied to like transition and phase of life issues. Like, am I where I thought I would be at this phase in my life? Did I contribute to where I should have? Was my work efforts, my parenting, and there's a lot of reflection, we believe, at that transition. Retirement can be a high risk time. But as people grow and get older, we do worry about them for isolation and loneliness. It hits our elders hard. And that's why, everything that Dr. Posner spoke about in terms of connectedness and faith together, those are two strong, powerful protective factors that can buffer against suicide risk.
Okay, we'll
Yep.
be on the lookout. I know you both have a wealth of information.
We love
I'm not going to suck it all out of you tonight, but we'll save a little something for another time. But if you ladies would be so kind, if you want to just have final thoughts, and then I'll drop you out. You'll hang in there till I can give you my number, and we'll say bye-bye to everybody. So any final thoughts?
Well, I just thank you for having us. I appreciate you. We appreciate folks that are willing to lead in this space and that have a platform like yours. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And I would just add to that, you know, at one point in history, we learned that washing hands helped us save lives. And now being there and asking will do the same thing. And what I didn't say before is, you know, 135 people are affected by every death by suicide. And these effects linger across generations because of that silence that follows, right? But now when we do this, when we ask and we open up, right, and we destigmatize, we actually can build resilience across generations that will do away, hopefully, with all that shame and silence and unnecessary loss of life.
I agree. And ladies, you just are the best. And we're going to take over the world.
There you go.
Let's do it. So I thank you. And I will be in touch with you. If you just hang out, I'll just say bye to everybody and I'll come right back. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Come on, y'all. That was great information. Let me see some more comments. Was this good for you? Because it was good for me. And we pray that now we are equipped to be able to go out and make a difference. I don't want you all just sitting home and just doing nothing, or you see someone that's suffering. We're going to be equipped with what we need to be a blessing to others. Okay? You got it? You know I love you guys. For real. I can't do what I do and not love you to pieces. So stay encouraged, stay blessed. You know I've got nothing but love for you. And until next time, go in peace, grow in grace, and don't just go to church, be the church.
Liz Black.